afternoon, everyone. This is Patricia Coleman, one of the panelists of the webinar, How to Cope with Bias, presented by SIETAR, Florida. And thank you for all the wonderful people who have joined us this afternoon for the third and last for this year of the webinar series on bias presented by SIETAR, Florida. If you have attended the first webinar on October 25th and the second one November 1st, the first one being what is bias, and the second one how to avoid or reduce it. Thank you for joining us again. And if you have not, please visit our YouTube channel where you can review some of the wonderful work that our fellow colleagues have presented. Today we will be presenting how do we cope with bias. Well, first of all, we realize that some of you are practitioners in the field of intercultural work, diversity and inclusion, okay? And others, as I said earlier, are just curious or have had some experiences with either prejudice, discrimination, or have been watching a lot of TV and a lot of the news. We are post-election and the word bias, prejudice, and privilege is definitely resonating for many. So because of curiosity, we're not going to assume that everybody knows what bias is. According to many definitions, and we're naming here one simple one from Wikipedia, a prejudice is, bias is a prejudice in favor of or against one thing, a person or group compared with another, and usually in a way it is considered to be unfair. If you take the time, or if you have seen the webinar on the October 25th with Dr. Neil Goodman and Wayne Henry, a lot of definitions and great examples of bias have been presented. And first of all, we want to tell everyone and remind everyone, including our fellow practitioners, that bias is a normal thing. We all have them to a certain degree. They are layered with everything from our background, our age, generation, our work experience, national origin, our education, just about everything will show up in bias because we want to make sense of what we experience and what we see, okay? So for more information, definitely do take time to review the last two webinars. I am very, very pleased today to present my fellow panelists. Again, I'm Patricia Coleman. I am joined today by Evelyn Deyard and Yuko de Neuville. Today, we're not coming to you necessarily as professionals and practitioners of the field of diversity and inclusion or intercultural. Not only that, we are going to confirm that bias is a normal thing, that we all have them, and we all experience them to a certain degree, okay? So, I am Patricia Coleman. I will be playing the role today of the moderator, but also panelist. I'm the immediate past president of SIETAR USA. I've also a member still of SIETAR USA, and I've been for the last 15 years, as well of SIETAR France, which is the second of my nationalities. I am a global diversity trainer, and I've been since 1995. And I do a lot of work in global talent, recruiting, coaching, and consulting. I do have my own international life experience, going everywhere from Europe and including a bit of Asia. And specifically, we're going to talk about prejudice, but the Asia piece has to do with my heritage, where I actually have some East Indian in my DNA. I am the author of Cultural Detective African American, in collaboration with my co-author, Kelly McLeod, also past president of SIETAR USA. I am the author of a seminar series, What Are You? An issue of identity and faces of women around the world. So it's quite a pleasure to be here with you today. My fellow panelist, Yuko de Neuville, is our recently crowned president of SIETAR, Florida. Yuko de Neuville is a life transition coach and intercultural trainer and speaker. She helps individuals and corporations to adapt in intercultural environments and go through their personal life, their transitions smoothly. She's half French and half Japanese, and she's experienced several expatriations herself, living and working in different countries, including France, Japan, the United Kingdom, China, and now the USA. Next is Evelyn Deyard. Evelyn Deyard is a multicultural and global and intercultural consultant. She works in executive career coaching as well as career outplacement consulting. She has a very, very rich background in HR, career transition, organizational structure, and she has helped hundreds and hundreds of executives in their search and career change to help them move on to the next successful transition of her life. Some of her own experiences as well include relocation, social country integration, and destination services. Evelyn speaks English, French, Arabic, and Spanish. And all three of us are located in Florida. Yuko is in Central Florida as we speak and lives there. I am located in Palm Beach County, Florida, and Evelyn is in Broward County, Florida, in Hollywood. Without further ado, I will invite our first panelist to share with us a bias experience that she's gone through that we've called religion discrimination. Evelyn.
Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, everyone. Hi, I'm Evelyn Deyard, or Diane. I am very happy to be here, and I thank you very much for attending. My dilemma and my challenge today, it's really regarding an executive career coach scenario that happened to me recently. As a career coach and for senior executives that have lost their jobs recently, I was invited by a wonderful client to coach one of his employees that was terminated because of the lack of finances for that particular company. So I was very pleased to take on that particular challenge. The usual information sessions usually last usually for a senior executive between maybe 2 to 3 months, and maybe numerous sessions approximately twice a week. For this particular gentleman who was terminated, he came in very upset, of course, and I was trying my best to give him the winning job search category and strategies. And we started our sessions pleasantly with his resume build-up, interview preparations, networking approaches, of course, cover letters, proper negotiations. Even though he was a senior executive, he had not looked for a job for about, I would say, 20 years. So you can just imagine he was very nervous. So once we went through numerous sessions, and he was ready for going on interviews, we had decided, both of us, that after every interview, we debrief and we go through the motion of what happened. Suddenly, once he started going on numerous interviews, and he was actually fluently trilingual, brilliant and everything, he came to the office completely irate, completely annoyed, and started cursing and insulting the Jews. So he would come in every day, he would say that F Jew was giving me that information today, my interviews did not go well, and he was constantly, if I tell you the cursing words, ladies and gentlemen, you will not be pleased. It was totally inappropriate, but I was really cool, calm, and collected, and I really, really wanted to, use my gracious control. There were times where I almost jumped on that, but I said, he is distressed, and he was very, very upset, but here we go, he was going on interviews. Knowing that he was still irate and still insulting the people that he was meeting, for a split second, I was saying to myself, I have 3 decisions to make. and I will explain my coping and my information with you after this particular piece, because we have questions for you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you so much, Evelyn. What a wonderful story. And knowing Evelyn being such a brave person, I think that 90% of consultants may have probably dropped the ball and just passed on this wonderful candidate to somebody he may feel more comfortable with, right?
Absolutely.
So to the audience, my next question is, how did Evelyn cope? How do you think Evelyn coped? I will invite all attendees and welcome to the new ones coming through. Thank you so much. As you see, it's many, many of you. So in order to have your voice, we have decided to welcome you and invite you to do a little bit of interaction with the chat. Okay, so please select A. Do you think that Evelyn stopped the coaching as his behavior was unethical in her eyes? B, she turned the case to her boss for reassignment. Or C, she waited until the candidate secured employment to address the matter. So I will give you a few seconds, everyone, and ask you to please list A, B, or C. One answer only, please. Thank you. Okay, so I see some answers. Somebody wrote A because that's what I would have done. Stop the coaching before more drama. Okay, so we have Stephanie. Hello, Stephanie has said C. She thinks that Evelyn waited until the candidate secured employment. Great. We have another C. 2 C's, 2 A's. Okay, now it's coming. We have more C's, 3 B's. Turn the case to another coach. Yes, to the boss for reassignment. Okay, great. Okay, so we have more B's and C's at this point. I'm going to give a chance to a few more attendees. Thank you so much for your participation. This really is a wonderful way to move on here. Okay, all right, so that's it. Great. So we have quite a few answers with a majority of B's and C's. And let's see the reveal. Well, the answer is C. Evelyn waited until the candidate secured employment to address the matter, but I'm sure it was not that easy. Evelyn, would you like to elaborate a bit on that?
I would love to elaborate a bit. It was definitely not easy, but I decided to be tolerant for that matter, knowing that this gentleman was in distress. Now, interestingly, that you guys need to know that I did discuss my dilemma to my boss, to the client actually, and he was ready to intervene. And I stopped him. I said, no, give me the chance. Let's wait until he lands his job, gets secured, and then I will do the reveal to him. He insisted, but I still, had to push him away and told him that I can handle the whole situation. Yes, it was not easy. I was hurt a couple of times because he was attacking many, many different things that I did not share with you because he was so unethical and insulting that I'm letting you, think about what he must have said. Now, the interesting thing is when he landed, he came in with chocolates, flowers, lots of mini presents. And usually I got him into my office and I asked him very nicely. I said, were you very happy with the guidance that I gave you? Oh, he was elated. He even hugged and kissed me, not to worry. I can't wait. We're taking you to dinner, my wife and I. And I said, thank you very much. And were you very, happy to have even been coached and guided by a woman? Because at first he was a little bit, apprehensive about even the women issue. But anyway, we got along so well. And then at the last minute, I said to him, I want to ask you one last question. Please sit down. We need to express that. And I needed to express that with you. So I looked at him in his eyes and I said, by the way, if you were guided properly, were you happy with my guidance? He said, yes. And I said, were you happy to be guided by a Jewish woman? Now, if I had a camera then, I would have taken a picture because his jaw dropped to the floor. He was almost shaking. He couldn't apologize enough. To which my boss on the side, he knew I was going to go for that reveal. He came into actually the office. We were all sort of semi-smiling, and my candidate did not know how to apologize enough. So the whole issue was like lessons learned for him, okay? I wanted to stay calm and professional to the very end. But the kicker, and I'll leave you with this, which was very, very fabulous for me, we are still in communication, him and I. And the fun part is that he gives me business of coaching his employees as we speak. So the good and the bad and the indifferent ended up really as a lessons learned for him. So I'm very, very pleased. And I also am very pleased to have held on and not to jump, which I would have usually probably attacked him the first moment. So thank you very much. If you have any more questions, please don't hesitate.
Thank you so much. We definitely, after the 3 stories have been presented to you, so 1 down and 2 to go, we'll give you a chance to, during the Q&A part, to ask questions directly to the panelists or to bring up maybe some of your stories, some of your experiences. So thank you so much, Evelyn, for that. So basically what we're going to do after each panel is really to give you a little piece of the work in diversity and inclusion. We look at a situation like this, a case like this, and that's when we realize, religion, religion, is it inclusive, And when we talk about bias, this bias, again, I just love the way that Evelyn told a story, because what it does is, again, demonstrate that we are not immune to bias one way or another, but it also illustrates the fact that people who do this type of work welcome the faux pas, I would say, from our participants, from our clients, because who else to guide someone and say, this is what you've done, this is what you've said, this is unacceptable, but it is normal and you can do something about it with my help. And no wonder this gentleman is in touch with Evelyn. So bias is really learned from our entire environment. We're so vulnerable. We learn that from our parents, our communities, the schools, just about every environment that we're in. And religion per se, as actually Dr. Neil Goodman mentioned during his first webinar, it's supposed to unite us, not divide us. For some reason, we always feel that we need to compare, that my religion is better, therefore you are wrong, and so on. So this is what showed up there. But I'm sure that before he says it again, he'll go, except one who was just lovely, my dear career coach, Evelyn. So great lesson there. Thank you so very much. And now I'd like to bring to the floor Yuko Deneville.
Hi, everybody. I'm really happy to be here. So my story is that when we just moved to the US 3 years ago in Rochester, New York, my husband and I and our 2 daughters, we were invited at our neighbor's party. And one very friendly couple came to us. They introduced themselves. The woman said, "Hi, my name is Kelly. This is my husband, John. Nice to meet you." And I replied, "Hello, how are you, Kelly? My name is Yuko. Nice to meet you. This is my husband, Nam, my youngest daughter, Lina, and my oldest daughter, Amy." And Kelly said, "Oh, Yuko, that's a Japanese name." And she looked at her husband and said, "She sounds French, John, doesn't she?" Then she turned at me and said, "How come you're Japanese and speak with a French accent?" I said, "Well, because I am half French and Japanese." Then she replied, "Oh, I see." Then they both looked at my husband, and John said to him, "Nam, are you Japanese too?" Nam said, "No, I'm Vietnamese." And John said with enthusiasm, "You guys are good in martial arts." Then Kelly said, "That must be a fun house. Yuko cooking sushi and I'm doing martial arts." We smiled politely. Then Kelly stared at both our daughters and said, "And look at these two cuties. But wait, one is blonde and one has black hair? How come she is the only one to have blonde hair in the family? Is it her real color?" My husband and I just looked quietly at each other.
Wow. Amazing. Thank you so very much. So before I go to the next line, I apologize for this. You know, again, it doesn't need comment, but just love those pictures that just, you know, show you the two cultures there as Yuko, half Japanese, and the typical French family, and just about every and any family, right? On the picture to the right, just lovely family. And I have the honor to have met him and all four of them, and just so great to see those layers show up once in a while and sometimes all at once. So let's see. What do you think about this story? How did Yuko cope with the situation? Same as earlier, I invite everyone to go ahead and put their choices, one only, please. So do you think that they got upset and said, "What's the problem with you guys?" Or, that's A, they laughed and explained their story for the 100th time. Or C, just smiled politely and said, "Yes, yes, yes." Okay, give you a few seconds, about a minute actually, because we have quite a large group here. Thank you so much again for participating. And let's see your answers. As a very polite Japanese would, C, said one attendee. Well put. Okay, so we have one C, two C's. Wow, a lot of C's. Mm-hmm. And somebody said the French are polite too, so definitely C. Okay. All right, so we have a couple of A's. Now I'm seeing C's, more C's. And we have some B's coming through. I'm trying to keep up with you guys. Thank you so, so, so very much. This is definitely the best way to get you to participate. Okay, so we're slowing down a bit. I think I may have all the answers. So we have a majority of B's and C's, and we actually have 5 A's. What's the problem with you guys? Okay, well, let's see what Yuko did. The answer is B. We laughed and explained our story for the 100th time. So Yuko, I'm going to ask you to say it 101 times, please, just for us.
Sure, I will. So my husband and I, we looked at each other with a smile in our eyes because we heard these questions and assumptions so many times. So we laughed, and for the 100th time, we decided to explain our story. I told them, yes, indeed, this is a melting pot in our house. I am half French and Japanese. My mother is Japanese and my father is French. And I speak with a French accent, as you can hear, because even though I lived during 9 years in Tokyo, I spent more time in France. And no, I don't cook sushi, but I'm very good at eating them. As most people do, I buy them because it takes too much time to actually make them. Then Nan said, a lot of Asians are good at martial arts, but I am actually a tennis player. I prefer to hit balls instead of people. And he said with a smile, and regarding my blonde daughter, I often wonder if I am the real father. And I will wait a little bit more until dyeing her hair in black so that she looks like me. Just kidding. And we asked to Kelly and John, how about you? Where does your accent come from? Very surprised, they said, we don't have an accent. We are Americans. And we replied with a smile, oh yes, you do have an accent to us.
Wonderful. Yuko, thank you so, so very much. And one thing that I'd like to say before we go into our third and last experience of bias, which I will be leading, this is what makes an intercultural coach, a life transition coach, and an international relocation coach, or a career coach that is working with people who are going to plant or secure a job working in a global market. What we bring to the table is really the real experience. It is, you cannot learn any of this in any books unless we've put it there. So thank you so much again, Evelyn, and definitely Yuko. So Yuko, yes, a wonderful story. And really, we know that we all have our biases, we all have our stereotypes. A lot of them we hear all Asians are the same. You can't tell the difference between a Malaysian and Asian, a Chinese and a Japanese, and they all eat rice and do karate and what have you, right? So those stereotypes, of course, they all come to us right away, but we don't necessarily express them. So this particular story is a matter of national origin, or national origins in this case. And Asians around the world today are really not, quote unquote, pure anymore. There's just so much intermarriages and so much migration as well, right? So as the question says, hey, did you know that not all Asians look nor are alike, right? And especially based on that global lens that or local lens that we have. Also, right there south of us, where we are based in Florida, is a big country called Brazil, where you have the biggest Japanese community. And guess what? In Sao Paulo, you'll see a lot of people looking just like Yuko, speaking not one word of French and possibly not English, and speaking beautiful Portuguese just like everybody else. And that's very surprising to many. The state of Hawaii specifically has a strong Japanese heritage as well. They're Americans and have never been to Japan for many of them, but because of the lineage and probably the great-grandparents and some of the traditions that have been passed on from generation to another, there is some great mixing between the American cultures and the Japanese culture. And in the United States, we have a picture to the right of Naomi Campbell, a very famous model, who actually, her beauty comes from the fact that she has Chinese ethnicity, and that is directly from a grandparent. It is not from the third, fourth, or fifth generation. So quite interesting to see that with this mixings of bloods, that we get some just beautiful people who have quite a lot of layers of races and cultures and ethnicity. And as Yuko explained, her children are going to be the next one with more and more questions. I just don't understand. You are blonde, you speak French, you speak English, and you act just like a little American girl. Where are your traditional Japanese values? And I'm sure that little Lena is going to look at them and just turn around and keep on walking, right, Yuko?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, exactly. But they're ready. And then the TCKs, and for those who don't know that, who have not seen this acronym, is Third Culture Kids. Those are the kids that are part of the next generation. And they will do a better job at this. They will be less biased. They will understand because they're growing up in this multicultural world. So thank you again to both my panelists. I'm now going to jump in and moderate myself with the story of one of my travels. My story is entitled, What Does Status or Privilege Look Like? So in my line of work, I travel a lot. And even before being a global diversity consultant and speaker, I was actually working in the travel industry. So that comes in that's my DNA in my blood. Father in the Air Force, brother pilot, work in the travel industry since the age of 16 and past college. But in my current role, I'm often called to do speaking engagements, conduct seminars or training sessions across the Atlantic, whether I go to South America, the Caribbean, Canada. I very often go over to Europe. And that particular story is pretty recent, when I was contracted to be one of the keynote speakers for a major trade show that took place in Europe with over 5,000 participants. So because my schedule was very, very tight, I could only commit to the 4 days. And obviously with 4 days, they were very generous to treat me to a first class ticket, which was easy due to the fact also that with all my travels, I've got quite a lot of frequent flyer miles and therefore a wonderful status, a platinum status with the 2 major airlines, which we'll not name here for confidentiality reasons. So that made it easy, cheaper. And even though that sounds glamorous, people, this is really not to impress you, but to impress upon you that we do what we have to do to travel and get there as fresh as possible. I was traveling on a Wednesday, arriving on Thursday, having a meeting, speaking on a Friday, and leaving right after the 1 p.m. flight back to the US. So here I am off to Paris and sitting at the gate, waiting for the flight that was on time, everything wonderful. And I just had a great conversation with this nice little couple from a small town in Chicago. So that flight was out of Miami, and they actually were visiting their grandchildren in Florida and decided to take a flight over from Miami directly to Paris. And that was their first time. So we had been chatting for a little bit, and they just were just wonderful people, but had already said so many weird things about the French and so on. So I had done my little intercultural. I said, no, you don't have to kiss everyone. Oh, no, the French people will not kiss you. And no, you don't have to smoke, and all the stereotyping. And they were laughing at themselves. So we exchanged our boarding passes and realized that we were sitting next to each other. I said, wow, not too far actually. So I said, well, we can continue that on board. At the same time, we were called to board. And so they went ahead, stood in front of me, and I had a phone call at the same time, by the way. So I got on the phone and quickly said to my collaborators that I was on my way to Paris, and I was doing so in French. It just happened to be one of the team members speak French. So as I'm speaking, I see an agent looking at me and coming to me and saying in what I heard kind of condescending as she slowed down, articulated each word, but raised a voice. Ma'am, this is first class, boarding only, wait for your group. We will call you in a moment. Sit down, please. So I looked at her and I was still on the phone. I put my finger up saying, just 1 minute. And I'm sure I am in the right lane. I have a first class ticket. She came to me. Let me see that boarding pass. At the same time, a gentleman behind me turned around and said, I've seen this happen before. Why didn't you ask me for my boarding pass? Why didn't you ask the two in front? Is it because she's black? Because don't look at my blonde hair and blue eyes. Soy puertorriqueño. You have a problem with my accent? I can speak like that too with the Spanish accent. And I froze. I totally froze. So, how do you think I coped with the rest of this story? Do you think that I complained out loud in lane so that other passengers could hear? This is ridiculous. Or do you think that I asked for a manager quietly and ask, please reprimand this agent who did not value me for my status and my boarding pass? Or do you think that I asked her to check the ones, meaning the passengers in front of me first as we board? So take a few seconds again to select your answer, A, B, or C. Patricia, you sound American. You probably complain out loud. Okay, I have 2 A's. Okay, I have 1 B, 3 A's, 4 C's, Okay, we have more C's coming through. A again. You guys are great participants. Thank you so much. We need to invite you all to our seminars. That's the kind of participants that we want. Thank you so, so much. And I can't wait until our question and answers. As I'm moderating, I'm seeing a lot of great comments. So thank you once again. I have Fabia talking about her background. I can't wait to speak about that in a moment. I will acknowledge all your comments. Thank you, everyone. Okay, back to how I coped with this situation. Great. A again. More C's. We actually have A's and C's. We have a tie between A and C. All right, let's see the answers. Oh, we have one more B. Two more C's. Okay, so there's no longer a tie. There was a tie between A and C, complain out loud, versus asked her to check the ones in front of me first as we board. Okay, so let's see. My answer is C, indeed. So this is what took place. Obviously, I am a woman of color. I am mixed. I am multicultural, multiracial, multilingual, what have you. I can pass for Latina, Moroccan, global chameleon, and I welcome it. I think this is a gift. Because I am in those positions very often and I recognize it right away. And obviously I would not make a scene, so A would not be the answer. And asking for a manager to reprimand, that would not to do anything. What I really liked about the situation is that I had allies, and we will talk a little bit about allies when we go into the questions and answers. It's important when we notice any kind of stereotyping, discrimination, a situation that we don't just stand quietly, right? So that we have allies. So the couple in front of me were just looking around with disbelief and doing more nonverbal gestures and looking at her like, come on, you know, we need to board. This is ridiculous. And of course, the gentleman behind me obviously may have had something like this happen to me. So indeed, in a very polite way, I said to her when she came to me, let me see that boarding pass, I said, ma'am, I was raised right. There are two people in front of me. Please do not give me the privilege of being the first. Take care of them, and then I will show you my boarding pass. She just paused, looked at the gentleman behind me, and I have no idea what kind of look he gave her, but she literally turned around and walked away. What happened next is as we boarded, the couple would not let it go. And they started talking to the flight attendants. They said, this is ridiculous, that this has happened, this airline, this is a lovely woman, she blah, 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 blah. The entire crew, the whole flight kept on apologizing. The pilot came out. But let me back up a little bit. Before we took off, this same agent came in with the passenger list and the last flight documentation. And the gentleman with the couple, within the couple that was in front of me, stood up and said, I demand that you apologize to this woman for the way that you that you treated her and the way that you behaved. And her answer was, sir, we randomly ask for boarding passes. And that is when a flight attendant said, thank you for the list. You may go now. And came to me. That is unacceptable, and we will take care of you. So something else that happened, I did get 30,000 miles put in my account. I did not need the 30,000 miles. I appreciated them, but I really think that the crew on the flight had a great reaction. The pilot coming out saying this is not an example of our policy. This is not part of our mission statement. This is not our culture. We really apologize. We really value you. And of course, my fellow passengers. So it ended up being a good flight to the point where I was a bit uncomfortable that they kept on apologizing. And I said, no, I'm fine. I really am fine. So the next time you receive a survey from an airline saying, were you recognized as a valuable frequent flyer member, you'll be thinking about me. So this is basically my story. And really, I get a lot of that, and the reason why in the diversity and inclusion piece, the gender and race bias, a lot of time this happens to me because I'm a woman. I was, even though I'm in my 50s now, I was traveling quite a lot already in my late 20s and 30s, in a position of executive. And it was just not normal for people, because for some, success or privilege does not look like me. So the picture that you see here really is another example of, who would you right away choose and as the person who is successful and most likely will have the job. And I used this picture in the past in training and seminars. And basically, the gentleman on the right seemed the most comfortable. He was just on his phone. He got this job. Also because he was blonde and it fell into the statistic of preferred look of success. So white male, blonde, tall, and so on. The lady in the middle doesn't seem prepared, seems a bit young, and doesn't seem competent for the job. I don't know how people would see that so much, but that's the diagnosis of many participants. Okay, so we always say don't judge a book by the cover. And the gentleman to the left saying, well, depending on the job, he seems very young and he seems like more of a party animal. Again, why would we see anything like that from a picture? Again, we see things as we are, not as they are, which is a pretty famous expression used in this type of work. Okay, so success and privilege may look totally different than what people expect. Okay, so thank you so much for your participation, everyone. This webinar is an hour webinar, so we have a little bit over 15 minutes to take some of your questions. What I will be doing as I take a look at the questions that are paused here in the chat, I'm going to also attempt to bring my panelists to say a little hello and wave at you live by turning the cameras. So just give me a quick moment as I do so, but go ahead and put your questions in. Give you just a minute or so to do so. And so don't worry, the panelists will be coming in soon. Thank you for standing by as I bring in the next panelist live. Wonderful. Great, there we are. So I apologize, I'm in the Sunshine State, and for those who are in Europe already in the dark, we still have great heat and great sunshine, and that's why you see me in kind of in a dark picture here. I'm sending you some warm sunshine in any case. So we're going to look at some of the questions that we have in the chats. Okay, so we have, so first I wanted to mention, definitely we had Fabia mentioning that, yes, from Brazil with Japanese background, it's a pretty common thing. Okay, a question for Yuko. How does it feel in your tummy when you get those types of stereotypes?
Thank you for the question. Yes. Many different emotions comes, but generally speaking, I take it with a laugh. I don't get mad, as some of you may expect. I don't get mad or angry. It makes me laugh. I would say it makes me laugh because I heard it so many times. I guess I'm used to now.
Great, thank you. We have a question for Evelyn.
Yes.
Evelyn, have you ever lost your cool with anyone? Because you're very brave. Thanks for sharing your story.
I have to admit, when I first started in the business, I think because my physiology talks, yes, my eyes can tell you. But at this stage of my life and maturity, right. I played poker very well. I was internally annoyed. But yes, I did lose my cool in the past.
Okay.
But in a very polite way still. But I still lost it, yeah. I have to be honest.
Great.
Type A personality, what can I tell you?
Okay, so we have a question here. Any advice for those wanting to be an ally in any of those situations? So I know that in case, I mean, I had the gentleman behind me who played kind of an ally role and your boss, but specifically for people out there who are experiencing something like that. Any advice from any of you on being an ally? You know, if you want to be an ally, go ahead, Yuko.
Yes. For me, my ally is my husband because we understand each other and we are both from multicultural background because my husband is Vietnamese, but he was born and raised in France. So he's also multicultural. And also I have the example of my parents. I have a father who is French and mother who is Japanese. They're both allies and both very curious and interested in each other cultures. So I think it's really important to be to be curious as a couple to the other culture.
Absolutely. And in line with that question, and I want to thank specifically, I don't usually call out on names, but Wayne Henry has this question. It is true that many, what many people going through discrimination, and discrimination, you know, what we went through are things that we can cope with. It's friendly, it's, we can almost laugh at it, right, Evelyn? So, oh, I see what he's going through. I know I can straighten it up. But sometimes it could become violent, physical, just situations that are dangerous, right? And we need allies at that moment. So would any of you want to say that if a situation where came to be as violent and somebody recognized that and knows somehow that you're Jewish, and said, what are you doing here? Get out of here. We don't want Jews. Go ahead, Evelyn.
I just wanted to relate that I did have an ally. The good news, the client himself knew about the whole dilemma that I had, wanted to intervene immediately, but that's how I felt for him. I said, no, you're my ally type thing. And then we waited to the very end. If I had felt any violence or anything like this, which my candidate was not violent, he was desperate. So I would have called on my boss. But for that time, I had my allies. So yes, it is important to have.
Okay, great. Question for Yuko. Did your children hear the exchange? And if so, what was their reaction?
Could you please repeat the end of the question?
Did your children, did they witness, since they were there, you're introducing them? I guess the question is, did your children witness the exchange? And if so, what was their reaction?
Yes, yes, indeed, my daughter, they were here. And what happened is that my oldest daughter, Amy, who has black hair, she lost her confidence with the months because each time everybody noticed my other daughter who has blonde hair. So she started to ask me questions about, oh, maybe I'm not beautiful because I have black hair, and why everybody in my class has blonde hair. So she starts to say something like, I'm not beautiful. And so yeah, that's a challenge for me every day. That's my challenge, to give her confidence in her Asian appearance.
Yes,
Yes.
absolutely. And so I'm looking, and so thank you for that, because that's very, very important to see that we have bystanders as well. We have people who are hearing, you know, what's going on and how does this affect them, right? And how is that impacting them? And then we have an expression in the diversity and inclusion world that says there is intent versus impact, right? Oh, I didn't mean to say this. I didn't mean to say that, but the impact remains, right? And can play a big part definitely. So we could speak for a long time about those, but I'm going to check one more time, and I believe that I covered all of the questions. Yes, I did. There was a question about let me go back. Okay, it's just somebody that had said that they had witnessed actually someone speaking to an African American pilot and asking him for information about the airport. And he said, I'm about to catch a flight. Oh, I thought that you work here. Yes, I'm about to catch a flight, he said. That's interesting. Yes, so I've seen that as well. So he asked me, have you seen that? I have seen it. My brother, who's more fair than I am, has gone through that as well, being at the airport and having people coming to him with luggage and thinking that he'll be the one carrying the luggage for them out. And his response, how he copes with those things is, I think I've done a good job bringing you all the way to your destination. How about you check with this nice gentleman over there? You know, I am not the sky cap. So it's there's always a nice way to turn things around. Thankfully. So I thank everyone. Since there's no more questions, thank you so much again for your participation, everyone. As I said, we can have this conversation a lot longer, but we can continue doing so. We at SIETAR Florida definitely invite you to stay in touch with us. SIETAR Florida is on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook. So you can engage with all of our network locally, domestically, and globally. SIETAR is around the world. We have Yuko's email address, and same as Evelyn and myself. Please don't be strangers. Stay in touch. And thank you so much for your participation. And have a lovely day. We will say thank you and goodbye in several languages. So I hope you're ready. I will say merci por tout. Muchas gracias por venir a todos. Thank you, y'all.
Salam alaikum, because I speak fluent Arabic.
Arigatou gozaimasu in Japanese, or sheshe in Chinese.
Wonderful. Thank you, everyone, and have a wonderful, wonderful day. Take care.
Thank you also, Patricia, for running the show.
You're very welcome.
Thank you very
Goodbye
much.
until the next webinars.
Thank
Bye.
you. Thank you.